Hey, welcome back to another episode of Work Comp Talk. My name is Carmen. Joining me today is Bilal Kassem, managing attorney at Pacific Workers, the Lawyers for Injured Workers, Northern California's top and premier workers' compensation lawyers. Speaking about lawyers, today's topic comes from our famous TikTok. So, Bilal, recently we had a TikTok video go a little bit viral, and it had to do with lawyers. People just like you.
My people.
Your people. Essentially, it's the idea that, hiring a lawyer for workers' comp is going to give you a different type of settlement amount versus not hiring a lawyer and figuring out how much does a lawyer make, figuring out, how much they get to keep, who pays for them. So essentially it's about lawyers. And I wanted to ask you if it was okay for us to dive in this conversation and really discuss numbers.
Let's do it.
Yay! I'm super excited. Which, by the way, if you haven't followed us on TikTok, make sure you do so. If you are new to our podcast as well, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you follow us on YouTube as well, make sure you subscribe to our channel. That way you get the notifications when we upload new content, which we constantly do on both of our channels. So without further ado, let's talk about hiring an attorney, hiring a workers' compensation attorney, and not hiring a workers' compensation attorney. There was a comment on one of our TikTok videos, and there was a gentleman specifically asking, or stating more than asking, the fact that yes, if you hire a workers' compensation attorney, you are entitled to a bit more money, but then the attorney comes and gets that money. So for example, you get 30% more on your case, on your settlement, but then the attorney comes and takes that 30%. Can you explain how this does not work that way?
Sure. So I think that comment in particular was referring to typical fee structures in personal injury cases. And in personal injury cases, you're free to essentially contract for whatever fee you kind of want. And so depending on the attorney, you can have fees ranging from 30% to, I know some personal injury attorneys now are asking for up to 50% of your settlement, which means if you settle your case for $1 million, they're going to get anywhere from 300,000 of it to 500,000 of it. So you're ending up with, 67%, 70% or half, and so if you're thinking that you're going to get 30% more because you hired an attorney and the attorney's taking, 30, 40, 50%, then sure, it's a net even or maybe even a negative.
Yeah.
In workers' comp, it's a lot different. Our fees are actually set by the court, and they're limited, and it's much, I guess, more affordable if you're an injured worker than if you're a plaintiff in a third-party lawsuit. But generally, fees and workers' comp are limited to 15%, not 33%, 40%, or 50%. And so if you're looking at a case and saying, on average, the attorney will get you 30% more, even after the attorney fee, are still netting substantially more money. And those are just averages as well. Every case is different. There's some cases where we've gotten 400 or 500% more than the injured worker was offered initially, or even larger, 1,000%. It's just case by case.
Right. So that 15%, is that just certain attorneys or every attorney?
Attorneys could ask for less, theoretically. I would say, being in this industry for over a decade and working on both sides and seeing other attorneys practice and such, it's very much standard that I would say almost all attorneys ask for 15%.
Is that just in the state of California or nationwide?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'm a California licensed attorney, and this is all I practiced. And so I don't know what other states have in terms of attorney's fees. I know you can't be a Arizona attorney and represent someone in a California case for work comp and recover under Arizona fee statutes and such. So they may have their own rules and different fee structures that apply there.
Interesting. So it's different than personal injury, obviously. Why is workers' comp then dictated by the court system, and why isn't personal injury? You know what I mean? Like, obviously there are two different branches. Workers' comp is set to not necessarily profit. People should not profit. Mm-hmm. And I use quotations with my fingers because the insurance company wants to profit.
Yeah. No, I think, for one, I think it comes from the aspect that workers' comp is a no-fault system, meaning that generally accidents happen at work and it's not really anyone's fault. If you're in a dangerous industry and you get hurt doing dangerous work, it's dangerous for a reason. It's likely to cause injury. And so workers' comp as a system of laws was designed to really limit damages in order to prevent certain industries and employers from going bankrupt and having to deal with personal injury lawsuits. It's a carve out. And so because damages are restricted, I really think that the damages that someone gets, mainly medical care, lost wages, and things like that, are designed to go to the injured worker. And I don't think the legislature or the courts want all these benefits that are supposed to be for the injured worker, which are already limited, then going to attorneys in huge proportions.
That would suck.
Yeah. Versus in superior court, when you're suing someone for negligence, for example, you're alleging that they did something wrong. They messed up. They should pay, and they should pay a lot. And so I think it's the abilities of the lawyer to work up a case and generate a case for large amounts of money damages is a lot different than you would see in workers' comp.
Interesting. You mentioned previously other cases where you guys have brought those numbers up significantly. Why? How? Like, I get it, but explain.
It's like the Coca-Cola recipe. I can't tell you. It's locked in a vault somewhere. No, I think it has a lot to do with the talent of the attorneys. Even though we're in this compressed system and there's, finite rules, I guess, and how we can litigate cases, it's still relationships with doctors, cross-examining, experts, being able to pick the right evaluators for things like QME exams.
Right.
Even dealing with components of cases where it's literally all or nothing. You get a lot of misclassification cases where an employer will deny someone work comp coverage because they'll say, oh, you were an independent contractor, not an employee.
Ooh. And
being able to take depositions and do discovery and ultimately put on a trial to prove that our client is an injured worker. And it can be really all or nothing. You could have someone with a traumatic brain injury who's 100% disabled, all riding on whether or not they're an employee or independent contractor.
That sucks.
And so you get into these situations where, sure, the doctors may say that someone's medically disabled, from ever working again, and no one's really disputing that. And the lawyer didn't really do anything special to prove that. Let's say they're blind in both eyes or something like that. Okay. The lawyer's not doing anything different per se in that regard. But if it's all resting on a legal or a factual dispute that's all or nothing and it's millions of dollars at stake, sure, it's the art, the talent of the lawyer, their knowledge of the law, their ability to research and write and really prove up the case, I think is what you're paying for when you're paying the fee at the end of the day.
So that 15% is really making sure that you're putting out all your cards on the table and that you have someone to guide you through your workers' comp case, which is, I think, is a lot of the misconception that people might have when they think, oh, I'm going to hire a lawyer. This lawyer just wants part of my money. But it's the things you do for that 15%, which when I see it from the firm's office, the things attorneys do to get the rights that should be given to an injured worker probably don't even, how can I say this? It's the 15% from what the amount of work that's put into it. It's not even worth it. It's not even a lot. It's not like an attorney is going to say, oh, I'm going to become a millionaire with this case. That's not the case.
No, I mean, there's some cases where I know damn well I've spent countless hours working on it. And at the end of the day, my attorney fee might be like $2,000. And I've put, 50, 60, 70 hours into the case for trial to just get the case accepted, cross-examining experts, trying the case on permanent disability and other things. And yeah, I don't make much money and I might, be working at very, very low rates when you factor it out on an hourly basis. But that's not every case. They're not all the same. And, I think as a good lawyer, you take in cases and you adhere to your responsibility to do the best job possible for the client, regardless of what direction the case takes. And there's some cases, they look great when they first came in and then not so much, 2 years later, but that doesn't mean I treat that, the client any less than I would otherwise. I give it my best.
You don't, but who knows other attorneys?
Maybe, there are attorneys that look at cases like dollar signs and you can tell in the quality of the work. At our office in particular, I think every attorney is very passionate about representing injured workers and seeing them get the justice they certainly deserve.
Right.
And so I think choosing the right attorney goes a long way as well.
Definitely. And there's this misconception that a lot of people think that, my attorney's just trying to take most of my money, most of my settlement. But that's not the case. And we've talked about this many, many times. The more the settlement gets, like, your attorney's not trying to get you the least amount possible. That'd be stupid, because that means the less you get, the less the attorney gets.
Yep.
The more you get, the more the attorney gets. So that misconception of people thinking the attorney's, he's for the insurance, he's for the doctors, he's siding with them and just doesn't care about me. It seems so dumb to me to even think that, because it would affect you in the long run as the attorney.
Yeah. Look, I mean, yes, I'm a lawyer. Yes, I do work that benefits, the public, but I also run a business. And as a business owner, I have employees. They have rent. They have children.
Yes, we
do. They
do.
have bills. And we have to generate revenue for our company to stay alive.
Right.
Things like inflation. I have to give people raises because they need to be able to afford food and gas. And I can't just do a half-assed job and get really bad results for my clients, because it's not going to be profitable for the firm and I can't continue to operate a business. And so we as a company do have financial incentive, not only to benefit the injured worker, but to keep our lights on,
Right.
And so we want to do a good job because we want to be able to feed our own families, and we want to be able to provide the best result possible for the injured worker. And it would be silly for us to undercut ourselves or our clients and do less work and try to get less money, because it doesn't help anyone.
That's not the way it works. It just doesn't. But unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff out in the internet. And just because maybe one person went through a scenario where they felt the attorney was, not seeking out for their best interest, it didn't necessarily mean that attorney was for workers' comp. It could have been a personal injury. It could have been a criminal case. It could have been someone advocating for you in a different law field. And then it gets put into every single attorney, which in workers' comp, that's not the case. You guys get paid on contingency fee, which doesn't make sense for you to want less for your client, because then essentially that's less for you.
Yeah. If I was in a business, like, let's say I was in criminal law and I did DUIs and I charge flat rate, I say, hey, I'll do your DUI case for $3,500. Inherently, I want to try and deliver the result to the client, but not do as much work for that amount of money, And so there's maybe an inherent conflict with saying, hey, I want to be profitable off this amount of money, and I don't want to spend more than I'm actually getting, because it's not a good business model. And
right.
So there's that incentive there. But like you said, the more we get for you, the more we make, we're a team.
Yeah, you guys are on the same team. Talking about a team, there's a story where there was a defense attorney, or not a defense attorney, an applicant's attorney, which is essentially someone who's batting for the injured worker, who's supporting the injured worker and going against the insurance companies. Talk about the story that the number one attorney in California decided to give up on a case or on a client. You pick up the client, and because that previous attorney, felt there was no winning, or there was no case involved, like there was nothing from that case, or the case was not going to move forward, decides to give up on it. You pick up the case and you end up settling that case for way more, and you end up settling in general when the number one attorney couldn't settle it.
Yeah. I mean, the case is still pending. Technically, it's already kind of done in a lot of ways because we've litigated so much, but there's a lot of attorneys that like low-hanging fruit, right? They want a easy case where they don't have to go to court much. They don't have to fight. They don't have to write. Like, it's just kind of processing more than it is litigation. And this is one of those cases. A gentleman had been shot a couple of times by a coworker. Pretty substantial injuries,
Of course.
He got shot.
Yeah.
He was in a coma for a few months. While he's in a coma, his wife gave birth to their daughter.
Yikes.
She thought he wasn't going to wake up, wasn't ever going to get to see her and all that stuff. He's catastrophically disabled because of his injuries. And, that was 8 years ago. It's still kind of going on. But there was a legal issue in the case about whether or not he would have been barred to collect any benefits at all, because the defense said, no, you had actually started an altercation, and it's because you started the altercation, you got shot. And there's a legal defense in workers' comp. It's if you start a fight, you're the first aggressor, you are barred from collecting benefits regardless of who won the fight.
Right.
So you start a fight, you get your butt kicked, too bad, so sad, right? And so there was video footage of the incident, and this gentleman had gone to, a catastrophic injury specialist in Southern California who's supposed to be big time. They'll take all the big cases, the hard cases, they get the best results and such. And they saw the video and they said, no way, get out of here. They didn't want his case. And really, we looked at the case and we said, hey, look, it's not so clear, and I don't think that they really listened to the client. And sure, if you watch the video, it looks like it's difficult. You could see it going either way. But once you actually really talk to the client, you understand what happened, the background, you get a story, you really start to think like, hey, this guy has something here. He's got a case, and it's an all or nothing case because of the scope of his injuries. And so we did a lot. One of my assistants and I actually drove around Sacramento looking for witnesses, scouring neighborhoods, like knocking on neighbors' doors, looking for people. We went to prison in San Luis Obispo, the men's colony, to actually take the deposition of the guy who shot our client. We went all out on it, and we went to trial on it. We won. We got the case accepted. We got him being paid benefits. UC Davis had a $7 million lien for all the medical treatment they provided for our client. They got repaid. And we're at a point now where we're fighting over, his final disability rating. But, for all intents and purposes, he won. He got what he needed out of it. So it's a tough case, and, it's a lot of energy that goes into it. But I think really when you're looking and saying, oh, what's my lawyer doing that's worth 15%?
Right.
That's what we're doing,
Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to ask next. Within those 15%, which is the rate fee for a California workers' comp attorney, or the max you guys can get, what besides litigating in the sense of, okay, helping out with representing them at court, what is that above and beyond? What does an attorney do for me? Like, why can't I just go and handle this on my own? Why do I need to hire an attorney?
I mean, in some ways, you're paying for our knowledge. That's really what it comes down to, because you don't know. I just had another case. We're settling it. My client had just been authorized for something called a functional restoration program. And on the outside, it just looks like, oh, you're going to talk to a psychologist and there's going to be some physical therapy for a few weeks and that's it. You wouldn't think that's that much money. Functional restoration, though, can run $30,000 to $40,000. And I know that. And so I can wave that in front of the defense and say, look, you can pay for this now or you can pay for it later, but you're going to pay for it. And so that increased the value of the settlement substantially for my client. But my client wouldn't have known that. They might have offered my client some arbitrary number and it sounded attractive and my client probably would have taken it. So you're really paying for the knowledge and research that we've done over the years in thousands of other cases, working with thousands of adjusters and defense attorneys and doctors, that we've really got our stuff fine-tuned in a way that makes it possible for you to get the best result.
That's good. And again, this is the conversation that comes up a lot. A lot of people debate whether they should get an attorney because of the fact that, one, they don't want to share the money. Two, they already feel like they're getting so little. And it's like, why should I give some of it to an attorney when I can handle this on my own? It's really a fine line between making that decision that's going to make a big difference in your case, which is, should I hire an attorney or should I wing it on my own? Because of the system being so complex. And we've mentioned this many, many times. This is one of the cases where it's like, who cares? If you're only going to get whatever amount you're going to get, if it's not enough, or if you think it's so minimal and it doesn't really matter. Like, sometimes it does matter. And it's the fact that you get to get the benefits you're entitled to and that you're not getting robbed from your rights as an injured worker. That why would you want to leave the insurance company extra money on the table just because you don't want to hire an attorney? Yeah. I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
I mean, these are multi-billion-dollar insurance companies, right? When they pay out $50,000 to, poor Bob with a back injury who can never work again, like, they're not losing sleep over it. Like, why should you care about how they feel? It's right. They're for profit. They're not for your health or welfare. They really don't care at the end of the day.
It's insane. It's insane that we're even talking about it in that sense. But this all came out from a video. It all came out from a TikTok video. There is that conception that people have that, seriously, attorneys just take your money. They don't really care about you. But there is the facts. There's studies that have been done when it comes to hiring an attorney for a workers' comp case and the difference that makes, just because the attorney knows so much more than the injured worker in the sense of the law. That's what you studied. That's what you pretty much breathe every day. And it's a one-off for the injured worker if they don't know what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah. And I think a point of feedback I get a lot is when we get a bad result for a client. And it's not a bad result because it's something we did. It's just the law. It's just the shitty system, right?
Right.
You have you could have a relatively minor injury, right? Let's say you break your thumb and you need, you have some serious damage and it has to be fused so you can't grip anymore or something like that. And so let's say you've been a construction worker for 25 years and that's all you know. Now you're displaced from your employment, your means of living because of a thumb injury, which that's going to not net you that much money. It's a small injury, all things considered, but you're now out of work and you don't know what else to do for money. The system's not going to pay you for the fact that you've been displaced from your employment for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. It's just not how comp's set up. We can do things to work up the value of the case with vocational experts and things like that, but even then it's fairly limited. And so a lot of people are upset because they're like, hey, look, maybe I would have worked another 20 years and earned another $1 million. Mm-hmm. And now you're telling me I'm getting, $50,000 or $100,000 or even less. It's difficult because as the attorney, we can only do so much in the system. Mm-hmm. And trying to deliver bad news sometimes isn't always easy. And I think oftentimes we can be blamed for that.
Of course. And so, like you said, there's a lot of decisions that get made within an injury case from work. There's doctors involved. Mm-hmm. There's the QMEs, the qualified medical evaluators, who kind of have a say. There's the adjusters. I mean, there are so many people involved in a case that can have a part for the case and make decisions. It almost sucks. Like, if you get a bad QME, you can fight for it. You can get the second bad QME. Like, you can get a horrible claims adjuster who just doesn't care about humans in general. And there are so many reasons and ways your case cannot be how you visioned it. But it doesn't mean it's because the attorney didn't do their job. Because there's so many people involved, that negativity can come from so many different ways. Like, you're more at risk having so many heads involved in a case, which is usually the case. And then they turn around like, well, you didn't do anything for me as my attorney.
Yeah, I mean, a prime example of this, right? A doctor can change your work status.
Yep.
And the insurance company will say, okay, you're no longer temporarily disabled, you can go back to work. So we're going to cut your temporary disability benefits. The remedy for that on the lawyer's side would be to try to change the treating physician, ask the treating physician to change work restrictions, or if we disagree with the doctor, going to a QME, all of which can take weeks, if not months. And so it's just a slow process. So an injured worker might say, well, I can't wait months because I have rent, I have bills, I can't go back to work. And that puts us in a tough spot because it's frustrating to operate in this closed world with only so many tools that we can't deliver immediate results that our clients need. And like you said, there's a lot of variables. You can get sent to a first doctor at a place like what used to be US HealthWorks, where they say, yeah, you know what, it sounds like you have a herniated disc in your back, you probably need surgery. Let's, do an MRI. Okay, yeah, there's the herniated disc, you definitely need surgery, but you know what, we don't think this is work-related, go back to work. Or, you try and get a QME on your own, you end up with a terrible doctor who's like, yeah, that's not work-related at all. And I don't think so because you're old. It's degenerative changes. You've had this all your life. Damn. It's like dealing with that stuff is far more catastrophic to your case. And we see a lot of that with people trying to navigate the system on their own. And then it's very difficult for us to try to piece the case back together in a way that gets a fairly decent result, all things considered.
After it's gone that far.
Yeah, it's really hard. And, there's doctors out there that are clearly, we know where their interests are, right? They're not injured worker oriented. They're definitely insurance oriented. And, they've been in business a long time. You have orthopedic surgeons who've been doing what they've been doing for 30 plus years. And we have to try and attack their opinion medically to prove their opinion to not be substantial medical evidence. And that can be really difficult, So I think there's a lot of roadblocks in the way in workers' comp, and even more so if you're kind of going down the path on your own and you really don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. So you definitely would want to think twice before you navigate the system alone.
That being said, think twice when you're hiring an attorney, right? Make sure you're hiring the right attorney.
That is true.
You know, I think there's a lot of attorneys out there that really just look at this like a numbers game and that's it. And I don't think you're going to get a good result.
Yeah, they're just in and out. I'll get this case, settle him for whatever amount, and I'll just get my piece of it, you know, unfortunately.
Read the reviews, check online.
Yeah. That's a plus. So I'm glad we talked about this. It's a conversation we've had here and there. We sprinkled it around, but because this was so trending on TikTok, I thought let's really dive into what an attorney does for you. Let's really dive into what is this 15% actually, you know, worth. It's more than 15% because this person essentially is getting you, and in some cases, thousands more than, you know, you mentioned it earlier. They'll kind of throw a number at your face that is going to look appetizing and you're going to be like, fuck, I need to pay my rent. My car got repoed. Might as well just take this now and get all this over with. But then in the long run, you realize, shit, I could have gotten so much more had I gotten a lawyer.
Yeah. And look, you know, at least at my firm, I don't know about other firms, when you're paying that 15% out of your settlement, you're getting an intake specialist who's going to figure out exactly what needs to be filed and file everything with the court. You're going to have a medical treatment specialist who's ensuring that we select the best doctor for you and getting your appointment set up. You're going to have a team of case managers who are there to make sure the QME is getting picked up, to make sure your checks are sent on time, that your benefits are being paid at the right rate. And you're going to have an attorney quarterbacking everything who's always there to work on your case. So when you're talking about 15% for just a lawyer, you're kind of talking about 15% for a small army at your back, helping you out. So it's a tremendous amount of work that goes into a lot of these little things.
The fact that you don't have to sit there and file all these paperwork, this is a ton of paperwork, a ton of questions, and if I don't have to stress about that and have a whole team stress about it for me and figure it out for me, and all I have to do is just be home and make sure that I'm recovering and just focusing on my recovery, it's all worth it.
Absolutely.
It's all worth it. Well, thank you for joining me today, and thank you for discussing this very important topic. We hope you've enjoyed and learned what really comes in with those 15%, 15% contingency fee from your workers' comp attorney, the importance of hiring an attorney, and if you need an attorney, please, by all means, call Pacific Workers, the Lawyers for Injured Workers. You can find them online as well, and on social media everywhere. So we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thank you guys for watching, or thank you guys for listening.